Hello, and welcome to Universally Direct. Today's episode is going to be about the second principle that I gave my son, and that is a man never lies. And so, of course, lying is a big deal. You don't want to be a liar. You shouldn't lie. Everybody knows that. But I chose this as the second principle to teach my son because lying is a perfect case in which we can start to teach our sons about integrity. And integrity is the big one. That's the one that, as a 3 year old, he was too little to understand. What does integrity mean? So I told him, a man never lies. And, it's huge. Um, we're in a day and age where morals and values are in serious question. Of course, there are some people who are born with these things who just, for whatever innate reason, find it difficult to lie, to manipulate, to take advantage of people. But we don't always have this strong moral compass within us. So it's something that needs to be taught. At the very least, it's something that needs to be reinforced. And I do it with my son on a daily basis. Every morning, he tells me his three principles, which are a man keeps things clean, a man never lies, and a man never loses control. And I did a video about the first principle, a man keeps things clean, so you can go check that out. That'd be great. But the second principle, a man never lies, it's of course like the first and the third I'll go into, meant to be so much more than that, wrapped in a package that a child can understand. And I chose that principle to teach him about integrity, about having values. Now, one of my classmates at UTSA in my ethics class, he described integrity in a great way. He said the definition in his mind was doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And I think that's a perfect example of integrity because, if you're behaving in a right way for a wrong reason and you're being fake, you're actually lying in a sense. You're lying to whoever it is you're trying to impress, or in whatever situation you're trying to make yourself out to be something better than you are. And so doing things when no one's looking, that gets at the very core, of morality. It is a principle that you live by. If you can do this 100% of the time, every time, even when you know that you don't have to. And one of the things that I found from analyzing people is that they so often will do the wrong thing the second that they discover the fact that they're not going to get busted. If they can get away with something, it's almost like, it's exactly like taking the forbidden fruit. It's like, oh, I'm going to do it because I can't. And so that's this impulse that's built into us. And it seems to be just a part of human nature that, when we see an opportunity to do something that you normally wouldn't be able to, you just take the opportunity, maybe just for the very reason that it's a rare opportunity. I don't understand exactly why, but it happens. People do it. When no one's looking, you're going to cut the corner. You're going to take the shortcut. You're going to half-ass your job. And that's wrong because you should never be lying or you should never be telling the truth for someone else. You should be telling the truth because you want to, because you want to be an honest person, because you want to possess integrity. And so you should never lie because you don't want to lie, not because you think it's right. And this is a huge, huge part of what makes a good man, is that you're not putting on a show. So in my mind, integrity is, it's one of the most important things you could possibly have. It's one of the most important things you could possibly try to cultivate in your children. Integrity and honesty. And it really needs to become, in this child's mind, something that they themselves would like to do. You've got to put that in there early, that pretty much everything you do in life is in some way selfish, because you're doing this not because you have to, not because you don't want to get in trouble, not because you want to go get an ice cream later for and be rewarded, but just because you want the right thing. You want to be an honest man. So not lying and having integrity is a way to instill into my son that these principles are his own. No one's coercing him into behaving properly. And, lying or telling the truth rather is really the basis of trust. And so when we think about, our sons or daughters leading a fulfilled life, that's going to include friendships and relationships with family, with significant others, with their children one day. And all of these types of relationships, pretty much every relationship, is going to be grounded in some sort of trust for the other person, whether it's trust that they're going to hear you out, trust that they're going to be there for you when you need help. And without trust, the whole thing falls apart. And, the whole thing can fall apart and people are still holding it up on their bare shoulders because they're unwilling to let go. And that's a whole other thing that we'll get into one day in a later video, which is the ability to let go. But for now, let's just say that, without trust, you're not going to have a good relationship, no matter what it is, whether it's a friendship, a relationship with your parents, significant other, anybody. It really is a miserable existence to, slowly go through the motions of a broken relationship where there is no trust, because it creates like an endless amount of scenarios in which you're going to argue, you're going to question, you're going to be weighed down with anxiety and paranoia. It's just not good. Nobody wants to exist in any relationship without trust. It's the foundation for which you start to build your relationship into more than just a trusting relationship. And when you trust somebody, then you can let your guard down and you can be natural, you can be comfortable, and you can start to open up and start to make deeper connections. Lasting relationships are always built on trust. And when you lie, or if you're a liar, that just can't happen. So you're really like depriving yourself of everything that makes life great, these personal relationships, these deep, intimate relationships with people that we know and love. And, you know, without trust, with lying, you really attack the institution of promising as well. Because when you lie, you know, how can you promise something to anybody, or how can promises be given in turn to you? It really is a foundation for so many things, and that's why I chose it as rule number 2, or the second principle that he should live by. And every morning he tells me a man never lies. And, while that might seem superficial on the surface, I know that it's about him developing integrity. Man, so many of us every day lie to ourselves. We tell ourselves, no, I'm not an alcoholic. No, I'm not lazy. No, I'm not responsible for who I am. It was all my dad's fault. It was the way I grew up. It was coming from the ghetto that messed me all up. My environment, blah, blah, blah. I hate that, man. I hate it to the core because it breeds dishonesty within ourselves. And, being honest with yourself is such a crucial part of growth and change. Is if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't look yourself in the mirror and say aloud all your flaws, then how can you become better? And if we're not becoming better, then what are we doing with our time here on earth? You know, a stagnant existence is a miserable existence. And, to be in the same place, say, even 5 years from now, that's not desirable. That's not what anyone wants to do. Not deep down. Deep down, you crave new experiences. You crave fun. You crave happiness. You crave special moments that you might share or you might take as, epiphanies within yourself. But nonetheless, we crave this change and growth. And we cannot ever achieve that if we are not willing to be honest with ourselves about where we can improve, where we're slacking, and it even gets into taking responsibility for your own life, because if you're dishonest with anybody else, I guarantee you're dishonest with yourself as well. Honesty and integrity is just a principle of who you are. It's a part of your moral character. So it's like you can't say, "Oh, I might have lied to so and so about this, but I'm definitely honest with myself." No, you're either honest or you're not. Lying is either acceptable to you or it isn't. Because, as I'm attempting to ingrain into my son with these three principles, it's something that you ought to be doing for yourself and for no other reason. It's not about outside forces. And so when you get into honesty and you start talking about being honest with yourself, it's really like at the crux of honesty, because it all starts from within. If you want to become an honest person or a better person, it starts from that self practice, looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself. When you start to build those, strengths within yourself, then you can apply them to the outside world, starting immediately with who's in the closest proximity, your wife and your kids, or your husband, or whatever, and then family and friends, and it just extends to the point where you might tell a deep intimate thing to a total stranger, because you know even more important than your maybe embarrassment or reluctance to share is the fact that you need to always tell the truth under every circumstance. When you get to that point, you're in a good place, where you won't even lie to a stranger, because lying in your heart of hearts, is just wrong. And you should never try to be what you're not. It never works. It only leads to misery. One of the big things having to do with depression in men is feeling like you're living this huge lie where you masquerade as what you think a man should be, and then deep down, personally, you're torn apart and you're miserable. I mean, there's a very high rate of depression in men, but it's masked so well in this, illusion of like, being tired. I'm just tired, baby. I just had a long day. You never get rest if from the moment you clock out to the moment you go to bed to the moment you wake up, before you even finally clock back in, you're still working at being someone you're not. It's exhausting and it's miserable. You always want to be honest with yourself. You want to always be genuine. These are all great principles in themselves, that I could have taught my son, maybe in a huge, maybe stratified lesson that goes over that consists over a few years. But that by then it's too late, because a child is developing every day from the day they're born. So since he was a toddler, I've been telling him that a man never lies, and I've been making him tell me every morning a man never lies, and been drilling into his head this principle to live by. Because when you get that in your head to never lie and to always be honest, then all these other more complex principles and sets of morals can evolve, like integrity, trust, the institution of promising. I mean, All of these things are big on their own, but they all stem from this root of honesty and of never lying. So that was, the second principle that I thought to give. The third one, yeah, I'll be making that video soon, is that a man never loses control. And that is actually his most important rule. So I saved the best for last, I guess. I don't know. But every morning my son tells me, a man keeps things clean, a man never lies, and a man never loses control. And then I ask him what's the most important rule of all, and he says, to never lose control. And we'll get into that. But for now, be honest. Don't lie. And teach your sons and daughters not to lie. And if that's a struggle for you, if you've been someone who's kind of just always, thrown a lie out here or there because you never really thought about how it was damaging your integrity, I challenge you to start being honest with yourself. If you do lie, I challenge you this, because this is very hard for any man, and it takes a real man to do, is to look yourself in the mirror, deep and dead in your eyes, and tell yourself that you're a liar. Because you are. If you lie, you're a liar. That's definitive, point blank. If you lie to anybody at any time, you're a liar. So if you do lie, I challenge you to have the courage to stare yourself in the mirror and call yourself a liar. And if that doesn't feel good, if that's hard and it makes you feel ugly afterwards, then change it. Until next time, guys. This was University Direct. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.